And welcome to WorldviewTube Washington Report for April 22nd, 2025. Let's talk about some good news. We don't get to do that very often. We have some tonight. Jim Paff, our co-host here, and our DC correspondent helping us hold down the fort. He's in Indiana now, I think headed back to DC soon. And of course, we'll be there May 4th through the 9th. We have White House press passes for the week. We also have press passes to film on the House side, the Senate side of the Capitol, interviewing many members of the House and the Senate. And we have some special interviews set up. Going to interview Miss Fleet. She is someone that was born and raised in China, escaped Mao's revolution, came to America, is warning about some of the ideas of Mao that she sees taking root in many of our states. So we'll deal with that and with her, where we interview her live at the Anti-Communist Museum. I'm looking forward to that. They're rolling out the red carpet for us. Their director and everybody's being so gracious to say, come on in, film. And we're going to promote them because more people need to find out about this museum. I just found out about it 2 months ago. We're going to do all kinds of very, very special programming. I'm not going to tell you all the details so we don't have anybody that interrupts what we're doing while we're there. But you guys are going to love it. And we're going to work really hard. We're going to work really long hours. And then we're going to come back with these great interviews and post-produce some of this into TV specials and share it with all of you. But we need your support to make this possible. We got to raise not only our normal budget, but then the special budget for this trip as well, and taking the crew out there and the film crew and all that goes with it. The permits we have to buy from the National Park Service, transportation, lodging for the crew, and everything else that goes with that. So please support us now. It'd be great to be able to bring in all the revenue we need to cover it before we even leave on May 3rd. So please consider helping us out, will you? WorldviewFoundation.com. We're a listener-supported network. And one way you can support us to help us push out Christian worldview programming for news and information is WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. Some good news tonight, Jim. That is anti-Christian weaponization of the government. I got a picture here. Looks like there were some of them that met. When did this meeting happen, Jim?
I don't know what time, but sometime today over at the Department of Justice. And they gathered up all of the agency heads, or many of them, as you can see there, many of them recognizable, to try to root out the anti-Christian bias that has developed in the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., really since the Obama administration. It kind of existed a little bit before that, but it really came to a head in the Obama administration, particularly after the Tea Party wave. When, the IRS discrimination that we were seeing in terms of organizations trying to form and finding it very difficult to get C3 or C4 designation. There was just a real bias against Christian thinking because, frankly, Barack Obama comes from an anti-colonialist view, which is, a very radical idea that was based out of concerns of what happened with Europe and Africa, but they pretend like we're some sort of colonialist power that just goes right over the top of people. This has been a great country of freedom, and a major foundation of that, in fact, I would say the key foundation of all that is the Judeo-Christian ethic. So if you're going against Christians, you're actually looking to change the Constitution and move us away from what we are as a country. So this is very heartening to see this.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Let's go to a little audio clip and video from today. Here we go, folks. Let's watch this.
Thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to be here for the launch of the Task Force to Eradicate Anti-Christian Bias as outlined in the President's Executive Order. Joining me today are members of the task force and individuals who have been impacted by the anti-Christian bias. Together, this task force will identify any unlawful anti-Christian policies, practices, or conduct across the government, seek input from the faith-based organizations and state governments to end anti-Christian bias, find and fix deficiencies in existing and regulatory practices that might contribute to the anti-Christian bias. As President Trump has stated, The Biden administration engaged in an egregious pattern of targeting peaceful Christians while ignoring violent anti-Christian offenses. The president is right. Biden's Department of Justice abused and targeted Christians. Pro-life Christians were arrested and imprisoned for peacefully praying outside abortion clinics. The FBI spied on traditional Catholics in their parishes. President Biden declared Easter Sunday to be Transgender Day of Visibility. No longer. Vandalism against churches was 8 times higher in 2023 than it was in 2018. And as at President Trump's directive, we ended those abuses at the Department of Justice on day one. We dropped 3 ongoing cases against pro-lifers and redefined the FACE Act to ensure that abuse would not continue and that American tax dollars were not used to support the weaponization of our legal system.
Well, I mean, that is encouraging news tonight. I wasn't expecting that. You know, sometimes you see an executive order, you see a statement, that's nice window dressing, right? But actions speak louder than words. Actually putting together a committee and talking about it, and you know what? I could have written that. You could have written that. Many members of our audience could have written that. That was spot on. I think she hit all the major points. You're going after Christians. You're going after pro-lifers. You made it Transgender Visibility Day on Resurrection Weekend. I mean, she nailed it. And just the fact that this is being spoken, I keep saying, you know, not everything is back to where it should be. We got a lot of work to do, But this is a great first step, just to acknowledge there has been anti-Christian bigotry. There's been attack on people that are Christians while we let the terrorists roam free and invite them into the country. I mean, to me, this is something we should be thanking the Lord for tonight and be very thankful for.
Well, it's very interesting to note as well that this happened today, Tuesday, after an entire week leading up to Easter, where the Trump administration emphasized the importance of Easter, the importance of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross, and the hundreds and hundreds of millions of Christians around the world who celebrate the Savior Jesus Christ. That is really significant. And now we go into this. We should not, though, it shouldn't be too surprising. We know that part of the reason that Donald Trump got elected, amongst many other things, was these particular kinds of abuses that found itself really exposed when the Richmond, Virginia FBI office had put together a memo about sending out FBI agents to go into traditionalist Latin Mass Catholic churches to spy on them. Literally, the FBI was spying on the Latin Mass around the country. And of course, they were doing other things. The whole FACE Act, if people don't know what that is an act that was passed, and I think it's an unconstitutional law, that restricted people from had certain restrictions from demonstrations in front of abortion clinics. But the stated purpose was to stop violent protests, which we all want to stop, and you didn't need a FACE Act to stop that. Any local police office has the right to stop violent acts in front of any business. But they have twisted this to people just praying on the sidewalk. We see this idea really getting weaponized over in Great Britain, where people are literally just praying and being thrown in prison. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But I want people to understand why this is fundamental. It's not just some political effort that Donald Trump wants to undertake, and I'm glad he is undertaking the political effort in his administration. It's not just that. This is fundamental to American liberty. People need to read the plain language of the First Amendment as it relates to religious liberty, which says this exactly. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, which meant the establishment of a United States church. So respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That means if you're an elected official, that means if you're speaking in front of a city council or a state legislature or a congressional committee, that means if you are promoting a candidate for office, no way, shape, or form may the government in any way restrict religious activities. It is just, the Constitution could not be more clear on this matter, yet we've lived under this false notion that that has to go away, which got weaponized when Madalyn Murray O'Hair was successful at convincing the United States Supreme Court that you couldn't have prayer in schools. It was a fake. It's as bad as the Roe v. Wade decision was. Poorly reasoned to undertake a specific cultural endpoint, seeking out a specific cultural end that was anti-Christian in its bias. The Supreme Court's been biased against the Christians. Many since then, many elected bodies and administrations in the states, and even from the president of the United States, have been biased against Christians. This needs to stop. We have no freedom in this country without the Judeo-Christian ethic. This is very good news.
Yeah, it sure is good news. We're going to keep following that. There's no doubt about that, and see what comes out of that committee and that task force that's been put together. Let's also talk about the Supreme Court. Before we do have this coming today from Fox News. Trump tells DOD, Department of Defense, to move more forces equipped for combat into Middle East as U.S. ups pressure on the Houthis. Trump says strikes to continue until Houthi threat ends. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm very, listen, I think that what the Houthis have been doing in the Middle East and stopping shipping lanes is horrible. It's gotten out of hand. Weakness from the United States has caused that to happen. And Trump is reacting to try to stop the buildup that took place that increased these problems by taking on the Houthis. I'm very, very cautious about us getting troops into harm's way. We need congressional approval for any war action. And let's hope that he's just, sort of, putting his, his arm up and kind of showing the biceps a little bit, and that's it. But it's a little concerning in that way. The other thing is, I think the statistics show that the straits that they have been most affecting really doesn't benefit U.S. trade as much as it does other countries, China and Europe in particular. And when we're projecting our power around the world, it should be to protect our own interests, if at all. And there's a little bit of a twist there that's a problem. But the Houthis have become a terrorist organization causing great harm. I'm just really cautious about what's going on here, and I do hope that the administration has restraint. I think we have other big trade issues that we need to deal with. That may not be the most important one.
Here's the new Secretary of the Navy reversing course. Here we go, and good on him.
Today, I'm focusing on the warfighters first, and I'm rescinding the Biden administration's climate action program. Our focus needs to be on lethality and our warfighters. Now it's done.
That's good. So the climate change agenda, I mean, they were talking about green ships and going green and all kinds of stuff that was just absolutely destroying the military. And he is saying we're done with the Navy Climate Action 2030 program. Done.
The absurd ideas that were coming out of these efforts are really breathtaking when you consider them. They were literally talking about electric ships. Like, where are you going to hook up to the Tesla charger when you're out in the middle of the Pacific? I mean, it's not even possible. And so the other thing was supposedly green fuels and all this sort of thing. Listen, we should be cautious and careful and take care of cleaning up our environment, but climate change is not man-made. It's not possible to be man-made. We couldn't, as Rush Limbaugh used to always say, could you design an engine that could destroy the environment? I doubt anyone could even do that and produce enough carbon dioxide to actually cause that to happen. I think it's so good to see this stop. If we're going to have war fighters, if we are going to have a military, it does need to be lethal. It needs to be capable. And this was taking the ability away, literally reducing the ability of the Navy in particular in this case. But it's happening in the Army and the Marines and the Air Force as well, too. It does have to stop. This is very encouraging to see.
Do you guys remember the Nina? Nina was going to be like the censorship czar or whatever she was going to be for the Biden. Remember her? Here, of course you can remember her. Listen to her. Remember this?
London Congress or a mainstream outlet, so disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo, and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote. Oh, information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in.
Okay, that's all I can take of that. She was the misinformation, disinformation czar. We all remember her, right? Well, apparently she is back, and I guess she testified recently before the European Parliament. Here's what she had to say.
Harmful and hateful content. Their executives, some of the richest men in the world, have aligned and ingratiated themselves with some Western leaders, including the US president, not for the good of representative democracy, but for their personal enrichment. Anti-democratic regimes in Russia, China, Iran, and elsewhere are taking advantage of this environment, launching interference campaigns that aim to undermine the democratic process with little pushback. And homegrown anti-democratic forces have launched a coordinated campaign to undermine researchers, journalists, advocates, and civil servants who work to expose their lies. The confluence of these forces has hobbled some democracies' responses to the strategic threat that we are here to discuss today, Russian hybrid threats. Just last week, in the United States, Secretary of State Marco Rubio gleefully announced he was obliterating the office tasked with tracking and responding to foreign information manipulation and interference. Many other U.S. government institutions have been similarly dismantled in the months since President Trump took office, all under the guise of protecting free speech and allegedly, quote, ending censorship. Now, the European Union has become the subject of the Trump administration and tech executives' ire, as it dares to implement the legislation that you, its duly elected representatives, drafted, debated, and passed on behalf of your constituents. The United States has now become the largest lobbyist for these multi-billion-dollar corporations and is harassing any nation or body that aims to conduct oversight or require transparency of them. Neither Washington nor the social media platforms it has captured are interested in preserving democracy. They are interested in maintaining their power and hoarding profits. And so, before I describe the details of Russia's recent online influence campaigns, I would like to call upon you to stand firm against another autocracy, the United States of America. The Trump administration is undoubtedly preparing a pressure campaign to force EU institutions to roll back regulation like the DSA, to end support for Ukraine, to stop holding Russia to account. Do not capitulate. Hold the line. Doing so is the clearest signal the European Union could send to Russia and other adversaries that it will not stop fighting to preserve democracy at home and around the world. The Russian Federation, of course, is thrilled to witness division within and between democracies. Moscow continues to actively exploit deepening fissures in our societies in order to amplify discord and polarization.
Okay. So she is telling us that, I guess she's telling us that Trump is again working with Russia. Is that what I just heard?
Listen, straw man. You ever know? Just look up the logical fallacy setting up a straw man. Everyone should do that. I'm really trying to figure out where Russia really does influence our politics. I maybe on the edges, and there are a couple Russian type people, whatever. It's crazy. It's a straw man. I want to make two quick points so people can remember what this woman is about. In that nice little ditty of hers that she does. everything that she asserted in that video, we now know to be a lie for a fact. Either the science has proved everything she said wrong, or an understanding of our constitutional freedoms clarifies that she was also wrong about that. And the second thing I would note is what she is standing for. This is kind of another logical fallacy of equivocation. She, like many other people on the left and Democrats, use the term democracy to mean something other than what other people think it means. It doesn't mean democracy in the standard way people understand it. It means building up bureaucratic institutions to stop certain kinds of speech. It's what we call the censorship industrial complex. She is pushing hard to do that. By the way, Logan Act, you cannot lobby foreign political powers on behalf of the government. And you know, we've never really prosecuted one of these things, but this is a Logan Act violation. It'll never be prosecuted, sadly. But let's just take a look at what she wants to do. She wants to continue, if she can, the efforts that the Biden administration began that literally suborned the speech of Americans, that literally threatened Americans with things like jail time and fines, and threaten them with physical harm. The Democrat side, the left, does threaten physical harm when there's disagreement. The purpose of the First Amendment is to protect, and this is going to sound radical to a lot of people, misinformation and disinformation, even malinformation, even in some cases speeches that someone would call hateful. Why? There's no need to protect speech if we all like it. But when we disagree, then we need to protect speech, because that's how you find out who's right and who's wrong the best we can as frail human beings who are not omnipotent and omniscient, and, by the way, not always good. The only way to protect a society is to allow speech that you don't like. That's hard to accept. It's sometimes very hard to accept. But we had better fight on this battlefield, because when Donald Trump is out of office, there is a beachhead in Europe and other places in the world that is willing to help Democrats swoop in and take over our speech again. And one other thing, and this applies to what we'll talk about with the Supreme Court, the Ninth Amendment. Everyone needs to read the Ninth Amendment, because it says essentially that the rights not granted to the federal government or the states that is not granted to the federal government is reserved to the people in the states. The people have all the rights that they want, and no government agency gets to take them away under any circumstances or in any manner.
Yep, the 10th Amendment. I love it. It's one of my favorite. The powers the federal government has are limited and expressed, and the unlisted powers belong to the states and respective people thereof. I mean, that's...
And by the way, keep in mind that the Constitution, this is kind of a legal technical term, the Constitution is a grant of negative rights. And what does that mean? What it means is that the federal government has no rights at all except explicitly stated. And that is, it goes into this. We were talking some days ago about John Locke talking about all government begins with the family, and then we cede those rights for the purpose of protecting our liberty. That was the intent of the founders, and it was a good intent. And they did highly limit the government to certain activities, and the boundaries of which we've gone way beyond. But it is a grant of negative rights, not a positive rights. The positive rights belong to us, the people. That's what the 9th and the 10th Amendment is all about.
Well said. Before we get to the Supreme Court, let's go real quick to President Trump in the Oval Office today, related to Jerome Powell at the Fed.
You have no intention of firing Jerome Powell, because your economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, a few days ago said that you and people in the White House were studying this idea of possibly before his term ends. No. Do you have any plans on doing that?
None whatsoever. Never did. The press runs away with things. No, I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates. If he doesn't, is it the end? No. It's not, but it would be good timing. She could have taken place earlier, but no, I have no intention to fire him.
I think they've just lowered interest rates in Europe. So several times, actually. And here's Jerome Powell sitting here doing this. I think this is all, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think he's trying to cause harm to President Trump and the economy. I mean, he wants to set up for the midterms. He doesn't want to see Trump be successful, among other things. I think he's taking personal offense to Trump, President Trump. But this guy is not wanting to do anything that's going to help the economy, because that's one of the issues that President Trump came in saying he was going to try to fix.
It can take us into a very long discussion about problems with the Federal Reserve and harms that it's caused to our society and to our economy. But the European Central Bank dropped their rates down to 2.5%. Now, what these rates are the interest rates that the central banks charge to loan out, to give cash to banks, okay? So you have a higher interest rate because they make their margins over the top of it. Currently, we're about 4.5%. My opinion, we should be down in the 3.5% range at least. I just don't see any good reason for rates to be the way they are. One little thing, though, I'd like to note that's very interesting. For everyone on the left who talks about Donald Trump flailing about and being so horrible, look at the restraint here. He's making a very firm statement, which is true and accurate in my opinion, but he's saying, I'm not going to throw the government into chaos over this. And yeah, we can survive this, and we're going to do the things that we need to do. It's very measured and balanced. People think that he is some, loose cannon that's just going to blow up everywhere. No, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's focused, and he's staying focused on things. Better now than in the first administration, when he was both distracted and then sometimes distracted himself just a little bit too. Very, very measured. But no, interest rates should go down, in my opinion, to at least 3.5%. I think the economy can handle that. And I don't want him to go back to zero interest rate policies, because that caused a whole bunch of problems too. We just need, if we could get rid of the Federal Reserve, it would be the best thing. It would be actually an economic boom.
Constitutional thing. It would be the constitutional thing to do.
Yeah,
the minting of money, according to the Constitution, belongs to Congress. I mean, Andrew Jackson of my state of Tennessee did away with a central bank, got censured for it, said never do it again, and we didn't listen, got one in 1913. And his farewell address speech, he warned about what would happen if we got one, and it came true. Okay, what happened at the Supreme Court today, Jim?
So the case Mahmoud v. Taylor is about parental rights. In Montgomery County, Maryland, the school system there removed an opt-out provision that allowed parents to keep their children from being exposed to these sometimes twisted, sometimes, frankly, sexually explicit books and training materials that are pro-LGBTQ+, mostly pro-trans. And they took the opt-out provision away, so parents had no decision anymore to keep their kids away from this if they didn't want it to be there. Now, there are so many things to talk about here, and I'll touch on those, and we'll go back and forth here in a minute. But one thing that is interesting to note is, from what I heard of it, and I didn't get to hear the entire exchange in the Supreme Court, but you heard even Elena Kagan, who is one of the left-leaning judges, questioning the removal of parental rights grant. This is a fundamental constitutional issue. And by the way, all the judges seem that way. I mean, if my interpretation of listening to what I heard tells me that this may be it could be a 9-0 decision, maybe 7-2 decision. I'm not trying to project. We don't know. It could be very bad, but it seems like that they were all engaged against the assertion of Montgomery County schools. And we have to understand this. Parental rights is fundamental from a constitutional perspective. There's a theory of law called substantive due process, which essentially asserts that every grant of rights should be available to the individual, and that we should favor the individual in this regard. When it comes to parents, it is assumed, and there are many court cases which make it very clear that parents do have a fundamental right to direct what their children learn. And that has been asserted by the Supreme Court many, many times.
Indeed, it has. We're against a hard break. The music's already played, and I got to go. TheConservativeCaucus.org, TheConservativeCaucus.org. Jim Paff, he has his big banquet tomorrow night. Full details at TheConservativeCaucus.org. Hey, thanks for watching, and thanks for your support, folks. WorldviewFoundation.com is one way you can do it. WorldviewFoundation.com. Take care. Tonight on the Worldview Report, Pope Francis passes just